Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Catalyst webinar series presented by the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA. The Catalyst webinar series is a bi-weekly educational platform for creating success and change in your club and career. We could not possibly be more excited to have our national president on the Catalyst webinar this morning, President Jim Richerson, PGA President National, also Vice President of Operations for Troon Golf. Good morning, Jim. Thank you for making the time to being here with us this morning. We know how busy you are. Thank you.
Morning, John. Thanks for having me on, and it's an honor to join the members of the Southern California section today. So thank you.
Indeed. So we've got questions that are rooted in your presidency, which you're expecting, but we would like to save some time at the end to learn more about the man, Jim Richerson, and how you got to where you are. We're all very, very curious on that path. You've been in some wonderful, wonderful places, and we'd like to know the backstory on how you got there. But right away, no surprise here. How about a Frisco update?
Yeah, we're very excited about that partnership and that project. We are posting different photos and updates on the pga.org website. So please take an opportunity to check those out if you're interested. We're well on the way for that project to get to its opening. Our new headquarters building is far under construction, currently slated to open roughly February or early March of next year. The two golf courses, the 18-hole golf courses, one designed by Gil Hands, the other by Bo Welling. If you don't know Bo's name, Bo spent many years with Tom Fazio Group. He's currently Tiger Woods' right-hand person. So if it's a Tiger design, Bo's heavily involved in that. And he does his own work as well, too. The two golf courses are completed, growing in. We might actually be able to open them this fall under normal circumstances. They would probably be ready to go. But everybody involved, the PGA of America, the designers, course designers, as well as Omni and the town of Frisco, partners on the project, have all agreed to keep those golf courses closed, let them grow in, make sure that they're in perfect condition. We have all the operational policies and procedures in place, staffing and everything that's needed. So we're looking to open those actually the following year. So fall of 22 is the projected opening for the two golf courses. Along with the 36 holes, we'll have a 10-hole short course that'll be lighted, that a lot of the families and resort guests and local community can enjoy, as well as a 75,000 square foot putting course that will be lighted as well too. Along with that project, our partners on the resort hotel side, Omni Hotels, which are based in Dallas, are building a 500-room resort and all the amenities there. That is slated to be open in March or April of 2023. And then the first televised championship is the KitchenAid Senior PGA Championship, which will be hosted there in May of 23. So we've got kind of different things opening at different times, but the headquarters, the new PGA headquarters building, slated to open in February or March of next year. Along with that, we've got the North Texas PGA is moving their headquarters on site as well too, which will be located just next to the PGA headquarters building. They have a very large junior program, player development programs that they'll be doing as well too, and moving all of that to Frisco. So we're excited about the project. We're excited about the partnerships there. We're really excited about what we think it will create for the local community, as well as for really the game of golf. A lot of our championships there, and a lot more opportunity we feel for PGA members around the country to potentially utilize our headquarters. Now we know many PGA members never make it to our headquarters, have never visited that in Florida, but we think being centrally located in Texas, there'll be more opportunity for members and their guests to utilize it, as well as the fact that hopefully we've always had somewhat of an East Coast bias we've heard from our members around the country, especially those in Southern California and the Western states. I've worked out on the West. I've worked in the Northern California section, the Aloha section, and now in the Southwest section. So I live it every day, like many of you. So I think getting centrally located will give us more support around the country as well too, as opposed to everybody that's working for headquarters essentially being on the East Coast. So we think there's a lot of positives to it, and we're really excited about that project, and we look forward to it opening in another few months.
That's fantastic. You touched on my next question here. In addition to the central location, what are some of the plans in place to attract PGA professionals from afar to come and utilize the facilities there?
Well, we'll have obviously a world-class education center as part of that. We'll also have a teaching and coaching center. So we think from an educational opportunity for those that are apprentices going through the program to become PGA members, as well as a lot of ongoing education that can take place there that individuals can come to and participate in. We're working with Omni and Frisco right now on different programs that we might have that we can offer to PGA members, whether it be golf rates, schedules of pro-ams, the potential in the future of maybe some PGA tournaments that will be there. So from that standpoint, there's a potential laundry list of things that they could take advantage of. Obviously, education will probably be the first thing that will happen. The education center opening when the headquarters building opens next year. We will have a number of national championships that will be played there, from our assistants championship to our professional championship to the senior PGA professional championship and many of our major championships as well too. So we think there's going to be a lot of different opportunities over the years, and it's going to be a long-term partnership. So we're in development of a lot of those, and as well, once we open, we know we'll hear a lot of feedback from PGA members around the country from items that we probably haven't even considered or thought of. We want to make sure we get that feedback from around the country as well too, to try to develop programs that can help support PGA members, and hopefully they're excited to come to the facility and utilize it, showcase it, and show it off to some of the members at their clubs from around the country.
Fantastic, fantastic. Can you talk a little bit about the impact of the distance measuring devices at the PGA Championship?
Well, I think if you watched the PGA Championship, you saw our champion, Phil Mickelson, pull it out pretty much every shot as he was coming down the stretch. I think that was a good story to see and watch on television. Obviously, beforehand, we got a lot of feedback from around the country from our members, both positive and negative. We got a lot of feedback from some of the tour players, both positive and negative. And I heard directly from several tour caddies as well too, positive, negative. And it was talked about quite a bit. But I think after we had the event and you saw players using it, you've seen them using it now in other different events. Players are used to it. Every caddy, tour caddy at every level has one on their bag. They use it for practice rounds. They've used it in some non-sanctioned events. They've used it in pro-ams and things of that nature. So I think this is really just the next step. From a PGA standpoint, we looked at it from our board of directors as one of the great things about this game is the average player and those that we're teaching and working with every day around the country can utilize the same type of equipment and play the same golf courses that the best players in the world can. At least they can right now. And we utilize that and sell those around the country because it helps the average everyday player and it helps them with yardage, hopefully a little bit of pace of play, but it's just another data point for them to be able to utilize. Sure. The tour level, we hope it might speed up play, but we're not lost on the fact that the players are going to play at their pace. The only way for them to speed up is if they want to play faster, and we hope that it encourages that. But I think what it does is it just gives them another data point, right? They're the best in the world at what they do. Gives them another data point to be able to utilize to try to just hone their game. So we think it was a great testimonial to watch our champion Phil Mickelson using it coming down the stretch at Key Island. We think it's going to become more and more prominent. The LPGA has already announced that they're going to utilize them next year in their tour schedule. And I think we're slowly going to see that at other tours around the world. And I don't think it's going to take very long, but it's going to be commonplace for players at every level being able to utilize distance measuring devices.
I agree with that 100%. Kudos to Kerry Haig for doing the setup at the Olympics. Can you explain how that came about?
Yeah, well, Kerry's the best in the world at what he does and is just such a great example, I think, for our association. You hear players talk about him, name him by name. And if you know Kerry or spending time around him, he doesn't like to be the story and doesn't like to do interviews. He'd much rather be behind the scenes, and he thoroughly enjoys and gets excited about what he does on a day-to-day basis, which setting up championships for our PGA members and up championships for the best players in the world. So I think all the other associations that are involved at that level realized pretty quickly he's the best person for that job. He's got, I think, the most respect from the players at the highest level. So Kerry's been involved behind the scenes at a lot of different events people aren't aware of. He's involved with the Masters every year. He's involved with other major championships. He's involved at the highest level. So when everyone got together about golf coming back into the Olympics, obviously a big part of that was what the setup would be, what the format would be, and how many players would qualify, and those types of things. And our officials, our officers, Seth, our CEO, others were involved in those conversations. I think everybody came pretty quickly to, who's going to set up, because that's a big thing as well too. Who's going to get the honor of setting up and running those championships as part of making sure that golf stayed in the Olympics? I think Kerry was the natural choice. He's absolutely got the, I think, the eyes and the ears of the best players in the world. They recognize that he's the best setup person that there is. He realizes that he tries to take whatever the golf course gives you, accentuate those characteristics. And he wants the championship, no matter what it is, PGA Championship, one of our PGA of America member championships, or the Olympics. He wants it to be about the golf course and the players and not about the setup. So not very often will you hear players complain about something that he's done because they feel that he's tricked it up or tried to get to a score. He always looks and determines what the characteristics of the golf course are, tries to accentuate those, tries to make it a very challenging but fair but tough layout. And I think he accomplishes that almost every time that he's involved. And we're seeing that again. You're seeing very similar scores for the women's Olympic competition as you did for the men's. You always see great leaderboards with big names on them when he's involved. You saw that in the men's with Xander Schauffele and what the players were able to do to charge back and make it a really exciting final round. And we're seeing that on the women's this week as well too. So Kerry, I can't speak highly enough. He's a great representative for our association. He's very well respected by the players and those involved with the game at the highest level. And I think he's going to be the person in charge of those types of events for as long as he wishes to be involved.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Back to education and PGA question. Associateship has dropped over the last 10 years. We're amidst the biggest golf boom since Tiger Woods burst on the scene over 20 years ago. What can we do to bolster associate registration and associate success?
Yeah, John, well, no question. It's one of the biggest challenges that we as an association and we as members face right now. The organization I currently work with, Troon, has over 500 facilities worldwide. And our biggest challenge right now is finding staffing, not only in the golf operations standpoint, but food and beverage, grounds maintenance, you name it. It's trying to find people right now to work. And I know your members are feeling that same challenge right now. We've created some additional positions that fall under our membership department that are specifically targeting recruitment, that will partner with sections and partner with our player development and our regional staff that's out in the field. So we are looking at that right now from a standpoint of how we can better service and better go after recruitment. We've got to get to the boys and girls at a younger age. We need to get into the junior program and partner with sections around the country to get information out to the families of those kids that, hey, if your son or daughter really enjoys the game of golf, they have an opportunity to go into it as a career. They should look at PGM university programs. They should look at 2-year programs. They should look at the ability to go into this if it's something that they love and is a passion of theirs. So we've got to hit kids at a younger level. We've got kids at the high school level, and we got to hit kids at the college level and not wait until after they're out of education to think about going into golf as a career. So we really need to attack it from a lot of different levels. We also need to go after second career individuals like military veterans. So we're working with those that are in PGA Hope. We're working with Next Gen Golf, which is part of PGA right now, runs programs for school level and college level age kids to disseminate that information. We need to work better with sections around the country to make sure that they have the appropriate information to be able to utilize to give to families of kids in their junior programs. And we're creating some of these positions that are specifically targeted towards recruitment, that are PGA staff members that will be out in the field working with career consultants and working with EDs and sections around the country. So we're behind the 8 ball, no question about it. We started on this late. Don't want to point fingers at anybody. Those of us that have been involved in governance at the highest level, we're the ones that missed it. So it's on us, and we need to do something now to try to reverse that situation and try to take the challenge head on. But no question, it's not going to fix itself overnight. We've got to get out in the field and get that information to boys and girls and young men and women and to their families about the benefits and all the positives of going into golf. Then we got to attack. We have to attack some of the things that have traditionally been about our careers in golf, which is long hours, working weekends and holidays, sun up to sundown. And we know that's part of the job, but we also know that's tough to recruit people. So we've got to convince the owners and the boards and the operators of clubs that you can't work kids and you can't work men and women 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And that's not going to take, that's not one conversation, and that's not going to happen overnight either. But we got to looking at how do you provide, a 40, 45, 50-hour work week? How do you provide, 2 days off for people working in golf? How do you provide the opportunity to rotate holidays so they can spend time with their families? And that's not an easy, conversation with some owners and some operators and some boards, but we have to continue those conversations. So after they hear it long enough, we start to change the mindset of that and we start to get over that. So it makes it a little bit easier for us to recruit people into this profession when they look at those that are their friends at their age coming out of college or coming out of high school, and they see that they get weekends off and they get to spend holidays with their families. In the golf, they're not going to get that for maybe 10, 12, 15 years until they get a head professional director of golf or a GM position. So there's a lot of work to do on this topic. We've got to attack it from a lot of different angles, and we're doing that now, but we know that it might take us some time, but it's something that we have as a priority, and hopefully we can reverse that trend over the next couple of years.
As an operator and as the president of the PGA of America, amidst the golf boom that's going on and the laws of supply and demand and the ability to charge a rate that you think that you can get for the service that you're providing, amidst the struggle of finding service employees to fill those roles to uphold those justifications on the price increases, and can you speak a little bit about the straddling job that we need to do between social responsibility and making sound business decisions and taking advantage of this opportunity?
Yeah, I think that's a challenge right now, right, John? For the last 12, 18 months, everybody's been dealing with a new challenge, which is the pandemic and COVID, and taking steps forward and taking steps backwards. We've seen the Delta variant spike here recently in the last couple of weeks, and that's changed state mandates to going back to masks in other areas and testing and things of that nature. So I think it's always a balance. We've had situations in different areas of the country where you have to balance both guest, member, and your staff safety with the business levels. And it's a constant balance, it's a constant juggling that. Right now we obviously went through a large process where we worked with the CDC, we worked with a lot of the sections around the country to work with state and local health officials and political officials, on the back to golf kind of blueprint and document and roadmap, so we could show a lot of political officials that really weren't very familiar with how golf operates, on how it could stay open in a safe and healthy manner, how we could do it under different states to keep golf courses open. And, the rounds and some of the revenues boomed last year because of that. We were able to stay open. A lot of areas in the country that closed food and beverage operations or closed other parts of operations, or you had to modify, or you weren't able to have guests come in the golf shop. They had to register or do their tee time, pay all online. They never actually went into a physical building. So we're always having to make adjustments based on what we're dealing with. We at the national level will continue to try to work with the 41 sections and the EDs and their staffs around the country and work with those health and political officials, as these things pop up, on how we can best adjust and modify so golf can hopefully stay open around the country. We know it's putting a lot of strain on our members. We know it's putting a lot of strain on the workforce, and we're working to try to create, different resources so they can utilize them. We've tried to list everything that we can from a resource, either those that they can go to for links of other political associations or CDC health associations, or areas of state online at pga.org. So there's one place you can go for it. We also know sections are pushing out information. Tom Addis and his staff in Southern California are one of the best at it, keeping everybody updated on the latest information and news on what's going on in California and how that might affect PGA members and their operations. We have to continue to do that. We're trying to listen. We're trying to hear from members around the country, then we're trying to adjust and modify. But mostly we're trying to look at how do we continue to push out information that can help answer questions and can help support. We know we don't have all the answers. We know that there's a lot of work to be done, and we know that there's a lot of stress on members around the country. It's just trying to provide resources and information and answers to try to help them get through it and hopefully get to the other side. We're hopeful in that. We're hopeful that this pandemic, every time we think we're taking steps forward, it seems like there's another step that takes us backwards. So we're going to continue to up our sleeves and keep working, and we'll keep listening, and we'll keep trying to provide information and resource to help get us all through it.
Get back to golf. Thank you for that. Clearly, you're very proud of it. Can you talk about how Get Back to Golf came about and your role in firing that off?
Yeah, well, obviously it happened very, very quickly with the shutdowns across the country. I mean, I was actually in Southern California. It was my last travel trip. Last time I was on a plane before we really got shut down for several months. So over in Southern Cal in March of last year. And when I came home, I believe I was going to be on the road 18 out of the next 21 days. And, my calendar got wiped off the map because like everybody else, much of the country got shut down and locked down. And we at the PGA obviously started to have conversations immediately about how this was going to affect our business, how it's going to affect our members around the country, especially because we knew real quickly, because what you were seeing around the country from a news standpoint, you were seeing that states were kind of making their own decisions. It wasn't going to be led by one national edict or policy or new laws that were going to come into place, but states were going to be kind of left on their own. In a lot of cases, counties, mayors of cities and states had differing views and differing policies that they put in place. So we knew we needed to have something that we could take when we were talking to political officials around the country that kind of stated our case for why golf could stay open under different policies and procedures as they were mandated differently throughout the country. So this was an easy one to get all the allied associations on the same page. As Tom Addis and previous past presidents of our associations can attest, it's not always easy getting the golf organizations together on one subject and moving in the same direction. This was an easy one because everybody realized real quickly it was going to affect everybody, whether it was manufacturers, whether it was other associations, whether it was the tour and their championships. Everybody knew this was going to have a negative effect on their operations and their business models. So we got everybody on the same page pretty quickly. Obviously, we are the operators of facilities around the country, the PGA of America and our members. So we led that charge, and really proud of a lot of our staff that spent a ton of time and effort in getting everybody on the same page and getting that roadmap and that document together, with a lot of assistance from EDs like Tom Addis around the country that were weighing in and giving us information and helping out throughout the entire process. So there was a lot of people that were involved in that. John, the list is so long to try to name them all, but EDs around the country, national board members, PGA members, large operators of multi-course operators, and a lot of the allied associations. So it was a team effort and a culmination of everybody getting on the same page really, really quickly, knowing that we all had the same goal, which was going to be for the good of the game. You would think it would be easy on almost every situation like this that's good for all, but it hasn't always been the case. But this was a time when everybody came together quickly. We got everybody on the same page, and PGA of America led that charge. You're right. Very proud of that, and all of our members that were involved in that, and all of our members that continued to operate in the way that they did under all the different mandates and restrictions. And I mean, all the stress it put on everybody, but how our members stepped up to provide golf as something not only physically, but mentally that people could take advantage of in a time when it was probably needed most. Just really proud of our associate and our members and how they reacted during that time.
What should golf professionals learn from the increase in demand of golf post-COVID? What's the biggest thing we need to take away from this?
Well, I'd say the biggest thing we need to concentrate on, biggest thing, I'll answer your question first and then make another statement, John. I think the thing that we can take from this is that, people, once they find golf, realize all the benefits of it. The social benefits, the thing that you can do as an activity with your family, you can do of all ages, you can do all different skill levels, and just the social, physical, mental positives that you can take from being involved with golf and playing the sport. So once we get people into the game, we have an opportunity to keep them and make them lifelong customers and lifelong members. Now I think we need to concentrate on keeping them engaged. We have those people now. We've got this new resurgence of people that left the game or those that found it for the first time. But once we get through this pandemic in the next few months, the next couple of years, whatever it's going to take, a lot of other activities that they used to enjoy are going to open back up and be available to them. So we have to keep them engaged and we have to keep them playing the game. And yes, part of that is on the national organization and our staff and our leaders to do that. But a lot of it, unfortunately, it's another thing to add to the plate, but it's the PGA members around the country. But they do that on a daily basis. Our members are so great at engaging their customers, reaching out to them, building those one-on-one relationships. But it's also the constant communication to those new golfers, whether it's an email database and keeping them informed of what's going on at that facility, whether it's getting them as part of their own facilities, Instagram pages and Facebook pages, so they can get that information and make sure that they know what's going on at their local facility, and providing what the customer is looking for. We're fortunate now because rounds are full everywhere, but as that dissipates a little bit, what are some of those new customers looking for? Are they looking for lessons? Are they looking for group activities? Are they looking for more social activities? We have to make sure we're reaching out to find out that information from those new customers and then keep them engaged, utilizing those facilities as their social hub, their physical place to go to get exercise or to get mental relief, or to share in that camaraderie of that community that's centered around that golf facility. So I think we learned that once people find the game, they see and realize all the positives that golf can offer. Now I think we need to make sure moving forward that we keep those new customers engaged and keep them coming back.
All right, now we're going to start taking a dive into you personally, Jim. How do you find time to be the VP of Operations for Troon Golf and PGA of America president at the same time? How do you do it?
Well, I apologize. This portion is going to be pretty boring for everybody, but I come from a really big family, John, that was involved with sports. My father was a coach his whole life, and I had older siblings and younger siblings that were always in sports and involved. So I pretty much knew I was always going to be involved in sports somehow. Golf ended up really being my passion and what I went into. So it was something that I've been very, very fortunate from very early on in my career. I had great PGA mentors. I've had great PGA mentors throughout my entire career, even to this day. I also was very fortunate I moved around the country and worked in a lot of different sections. It sounds like I couldn't keep a job, but a lot of those were with a couple of companies or organizations that had operations throughout the country. It gave me an opportunity to move up maybe a little quicker in my career, to take on new opportunities and new positions. I worked for Marriott and Ritz-Carlton Resorts and Hotels for 18 years. I got the opportunity to move around the country in different positions. I worked for the Kohler Company in Wisconsin for 11 years that has some great facilities in Wisconsin, but also has a property in Scotland, is involved in a lot of global business that tied into hospitality, and I had an opportunity to travel quite a bit. And now I'm fortunate to work for Dana Garmany, a PGA member who started Troon Golf, and our properties are worldwide, so I have an opportunity there as well. So I've had great PGA mentors that have mentored me throughout and given me an opportunity to always take on more responsibility. I've got an unbelievable support system with my family, my wife, Christy, and my daughter, who have always supported my passion in being involved the way that I am. And I've got unbelievable, boss right now in Dana Garmany, the Troon organization that sees the benefit of PGA members, as the largest employer of PGA members. Dana, who started the company being a PGA member, is very, very supportive of that role. So I'm very fortunate and very lucky that I've got a lot of people that are supporting kind of my passion. And then it comes down to just time management. So it's like two full-time jobs. Like I think anybody that is serving in some capacity, whether it's at a chapter, a section, or national level, you're doing it because you're passionate about it and trying to give back to a game and association that's given you so much. So I mean, pretty much every positive that I have from my professional career comes through the game of golf and the PGA of America. So for me to have an opportunity to give back in some ways is humbling and just really fortunate for me that I'm in that situation.
Can you speak a little bit about the future of Troon? It seems like every day we're seeing Troon take over another company or another club. They're definitely on the rise. What's on the horizon for Troon?
Yeah, it started 26 years ago. Dana was the general manager of True North in Scottsdale, Arizona, and he started to have individuals that were developing other courses in the state come to him to seek his advice on, the success of True North. It was one of the first golf courses, at least in Arizona, that kind of had that concept of higher end daily fee, kind of that member for a day, offering a lot of the amenities that you would normally see at a private club, but at a public facility. Really high end course conditions, higher end service with having cart attendants and maybe a range attendant, having full-time teachers on staff, things of that nature that you really didn't see at that time at public facilities. So there were others that were starting to develop facilities that came to him to seek his advice. And after he consulted on a couple of projects that ended up becoming competition, he thought, well, maybe this was something that he should just do on his own to try to develop a few other facilities. And he had a goal of 5 or 6 or 7 really high-end daily fee properties in and around the greater Phoenix area. That was his original goal. And just one thing led to another, and it just kept growing. So in recent years, over the last 5 or 6 years, John, we've gotten into not just organic growth of adding 20 to 25 new facilities a year because courses were looking for some assistance or partnership, professional management, but we got into acquisitions and acquired some other management companies that were in the same space. Over the last few years, we've acquired, OB Sports Management, Indigo, which used to be Billy Casper Golf, a couple other groups as well. So we're just seeing our business expand because we see a need. We also see that a lot of facilities around the country are looking for assistance to run from a professional standpoint management. Maybe one segment of their facilities could be just operations. It could be just grounds maintenance. There's some that we do just sales and marketing for. But most of our properties were involved with full-scale day-to-day management of all the operations. And we don't want to go in and, some people will say that, you're taking jobs away from PGA members or you're running courses down. I think our history has shown that we're third-party management. We don't really go after owner-operator or lease operations. Because a lot of times, if you run into a difficult financial situation, you've got to manage a little bit differently to get to a bottom line result. We try not to make decisions unless the owner of that facility or the board of that facility is in alignment with where we're going, or that's the direction that the owner wants to go. So we see growth in this area. We see a boom in golf with this renewed interest. We think golf's going to thrive for many years if done properly. So at Troon, we're looking for opportunities, but at the same point, we pay really close attention not to try to go into some place that's not looking. Most of our referrals are someone's reached out to us to inquire and to open up discussions. We don't go cold calling into properties to say, hey, we want to find out if you're not happy with what's going on at your property. Would you like to talk to us about us managing? So we just don't think that's the right way to go about it. We've had a pretty good track record, and we prefer people to reach out and find us versus us trying to go find them. We don't want to step on anybody's toes or make anybody feel uncomfortable, but when those facilities, those owners, those boards are interested in talking to professional management or third-party management, we're absolutely going to talk to them.
Now, Troon just recently acquired Yorba Linda Country Club in Yorba Linda, part of our section, and also just hired a non-PGA general manager. I'm sure you hired a wonderful person, but what can the PGA member do to better their chances in general management positions?
Yeah, I think that's the best way to grow, right? I mean, we interviewed several people, both PGA and non-PGA, for that general manager position at Yorba Linda. A lot of times it depends on what the owner's looking for, what the board of the club might be looking for, and then try to find the best fit. We always try to look for PGA members, but we want to make sure that it's the best fit that's going in, whether they're PGA or non-PGA. I will have to plug a little bit for Troon. From a percentage standpoint of general managers at facilities around the country, the percentage of Troon properties that's a PGA general manager is more than double what the national average is. So we do try to find qualified PGA members that are the right fit for those facilities, but it's not always the case. I would recommend for those interested in trying to become general managers. Some people tell me, I've had PGA professionals tell me that they don't want that position, or they don't have the food and beverage background. seems that food and beverage quite oftentimes is the deterrent, but really it's no different than managing any other department. It's looking at a P&L statement, it's managing people, it's looking at the staffing levels for the appropriate amount of business that you're having, as opposed to rounds of golf and green fee revenue and golf shop revenue. You're looking at covers in food and beverage, you're looking at percentage of wages versus revenue, and you're looking at the same type of cost of goods sold. It's just a little bit different model. So you can get classes in education through the PGA. You can get it through some other allied associations. There's a lot of community colleges and universities around the country that offer different classes as well too. So there's a myriad of different education that you can get if there's areas you feel that you're not quite as advanced at as golf operations. But I think it's applying yourself to those jobs and knowing that you can manage them, for one. Those that have taken those steps and are looking to make it, continue to reach out for those opportunities, whether it's through ours, whether it's through PGA of America and our executive search now that we're doing, or whether it's through other organizations that are hiring. So I think more PGA members we get into the upper positions around the country, whether that's at private clubs, public facilities, whether that's at golf course manufacturers. The more PGA members we have at the highest levels, I think the better off, and the more it strengthens our associations and more opportunities for PGA members. If a PGA member moves from a head professional position to GM position, gives an opportunity for another PGA member to move into that head professional position. So we're always looking for those opportunities as an association through our education programs and through career services and now through exec search. But we're also always looking at it to recommend it to PGA members if they have that interest in that goal. We want to make sure we're trying to provide ways that they can get that education to take that next step.
Now, having come from Kohler, Wisconsin, now PGA president, you must be very proud being able to return there for the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, John, it's going to probably be one of the funnest and most exciting things that I get to do from an event standpoint as my time as a national officer. Having spent 11 years as the general manager of golf operations at Kohler, I'm very familiar and still stay in contact with a lot of the staff. I'm very familiar with the company that are hosting it, and obviously a lot of neighbors and friends just in the community. So I know the great fans in Wisconsin. They've been so excited for this Ryder Cup to come there. Obviously, it had to get delayed a year from last fall, so people are really excited for it as it gets closer. We're fingers crossed working again that we'll be able to have spectators in full force. But a lot of things are lined up from the standpoint that the native son of Wisconsin, one of the favorite players ever to come out of the state, who will be leading the charge for Team USA. From the standpoint, the golf course has got some iconic golf circles in Wisconsin, having hosted 3 of our PGA championships previously. I think just the standpoint that the great sport in that state, and we're going to just ride the momentum of the Milwaukee Bucks having just won the NBA championship. So the sports fans there, they're getting fired up for football season and the Packers, but there's a lot of fans in that state that are really excited about the Ryder Cup coming in. For me personally, I always get very, very proud every time we see one of our championships that's on TV, and our ability to be able to utilize those to promote all the great things that our PGA members are doing, whether it be junior golf, PGA Junior League, whether it be for our veterans, the PGA Hope program, whether it's promoting a lot of the player development work that our members are doing, whatever it might be, but utilizing those televised championships in ways to promote what the PGA does and the great work the PGA members are doing. There's a lot of great, passionate PGA members in Wisconsin that are proud of that event coming to their state and their section. I know they're going to put on an unbelievable Ryder Cup, but hopefully it's something that all of our members around the country will be proud of, not only the Ryder Cup taking place, but the way we utilize it to promote what we do.
Can you talk about the parallel success of your professional career and your service career in the PGA and how those coincided with each other along your story?
Yeah, well, John, I'm really, really huge on mentorship. I think it's because I had such great mentors throughout my career, and almost every new opportunity I've had, or when I made a job change or a career change to a new position with more responsibility, really was because one of my mentors or somebody in the industry kind of tapped me on the shoulder or called me to say, hey, there's an opportunity that I think you'd be a good fit for. Would you be interested? I have actually gone out to seek and interviewed for very, very few opportunities in my career. It's almost always been somebody, either a mentor or somebody that I've been worked with previously, that called me or contacted me to say, hey, there's this opportunity. I think you'd be a really good fit. Would you be interested? After further conversations and talk about it, that would be something that would be maybe a good fit and interest for me. And then we took that opportunity. Didn't always get them every time. I wasn't always the person that was eventually option, but I looked into those options almost every time after one of my mentors or a close personal friend or somebody I'd worked with in the business or the association contacted me to talk to me about it. And really the same thing kind of happened for my service. I was like a lot of PGA members, that I was working hard in my job, trying to get ahead, looking at potentially the next opportunity or the next promotion. And somebody tapped me on the shoulder to say, hey, we need people that are at the section level, and you haven't been involved yet. You should get more involved, and I think you'd be a good fit. And it took me about another 18 months to of a few of those conversations to finally decide, that maybe I thought I could do, and type of knowledge or background or help in that area. And then the same kind of people said, you should think about running for section office. And same people kind of tapped me on the shoulder to say, hey, have you considered running for district director to represent our district on the national level? And that's where I thought it ended. And then the similar thing happened. I had a couple of people I served with and a couple past presidents that I truly respect that had a conversation with me along the way to say, have you considered running for a national office? Something to offer in that regard. So I've been very fortunate, and in both cases, both my professional career, really my service career, it's always been because I had mentors that I highly respected, or PGA members that I highly respected, that tapped me on the shoulder or picked up the phone and called me and said, we think this is something you may want to consider. You might be a good fit. You should get more involved. And that's something that I've tried to do. Those that have been in the business for a while, or people that I've worked with or alongside, is when opportunities come up that I think good for somebody, I really make sure now that, much like my mentors did to me, I pick up that phone or sit that person down and say, hey, there's an opportunity. I think you'd be a really good fit. And a lot of times those are with the same company that I work for, or organization I work for. But I also always felt that it was my role as a manager, whether it be a head golf professional, director of golf, or a GM, or now in my current role, those always aren't opportunities with the same organization. A lot of times it's a good fit outside of who you work for, but it's in the industry, and it might be a really good fit for that individual. And if it's going to be a good fit for that individual, it's an opportunity I need to make sure that I'm sharing with that individual so they have that opportunity. Hopefully it's a good opportunity for them. And then if they take that opportunity, it opens up another opportunity, hopefully for another PGA member. So I've been very fortunate throughout my career, and hopefully I've learned that lesson, and now trying to do the same thing in return, to share opportunities and discuss opportunities for individuals where I think it might be a good fit.
You talk about mentorship and how important that has been to your career, both from a service standpoint and professionally. Who are some of those mentors that you've looked up to over the years?
Well, the first PGA boss I ever had when I was in college, and really young assistant that didn't know anything. Bill Nault is his name. He was a PGA member. He's now the senior vice president of operations for Marriott Golf, running all of their operations. And Bill was a Ferris State graduate as well, too. PGA University. He was the first head professional I ever worked for. Bill, to this day, continues to be a mentor that I talk about just the business, about my job, about what's going on in the industry. Then I'd say during my time with Marriott and Ritz-Carlton, I had several mentors that I worked for. Steve Schaller, who worked in the Southern California section at a couple different times, unfortunately has passed away. Steve was a really close mentor that spent a lot of time with me as well too along the way. I was very fortunate then when I, some of the positions that I had, I also had a couple business mentors that came in the mix, people that were very successful. What they did were members at clubs that I worked at that I've had to this day. One individual was in the liquor business and the wine business in California, who's still a very good mentor of mine. Obviously, very fortunate. I worked at the Kohler Company, had the opportunity to work with and learn from and pick the brain of an unbelievable business person in Herb Kohler and his family. So I had that opportunity and some of the executives there. There were some great people in the state of Wisconsin. Joe Stadler, who's a PGA member and the executive director of the Wisconsin section. I picked Joe's brain all the time when I worked there for 11 years. There's great PGA professionals that I consider mentors that became friends with in Wisconsin, who is at Aaron Hills now that many know from hosting the U.S. Open. Bill Graham and Paula Cicero that are ex-presidents of that section and still heavily involved. And then now working with Troon, I've known Dana Garmany for over 20 years in the industry. We've been on different industry panels together. We've been on different committees together. But Dana is now, I consider, a friend and a mentor. We probably talk more about life and just what's going on in the industry than we do about Troon business. And I really appreciate that. So there's been a lot. I've been very fortunate to have great PGA mentors and PGA member friends. And I've had great business mentors that have stayed in touch with today as well. And I'm also very fortunate. I've got a very large family. Everybody's gone into different businesses, but it's been very, very successful. So from a business standpoint, I've been able to rely on my family and my wife, who had an unbelievably successful career in financial services for 25 years. So I'm very fortunate in my family members, my support system, and those that I've worked with and have become friends and mentors over the year.
Fantastic. Jim, changing gears a little bit here, other organizations seem to focus more on growing the game on the female side. PGA doesn't seem to be so specific. Is that deliberate, or are we behind in some sort of initiative that we're not tackling?
Well, I think it's both. I think obviously if we're going to grow the game and continue to grow the game, we need to be trying to reach out. And what I like to say is we need to fill the funnel with as many people as we can. And that's getting people from different backgrounds. It's getting the women into the game. It's getting people of different diverse backgrounds, more color into the game. It's reaching out to kids from different backgrounds. It's going into schools, but it's also reaching out to adults that have never thought about going into golf, especially as you get into the retiree age. People are looking to fill their calendars now because they're no longer working and involved in some of the same activities and organizations that they used to be. There are some organizations that have specifically targeted. Obviously, LPGA has been very, very concentrated on women's golf and girls' golf. And the USGA have kind of targeted certain groups. We also have different veterans associations that have just targeted, obviously, vets. So I think we have programs now that have been developed over the years for a lot of different potential stakeholders and different individuals that can get in from a player development standpoint. We have different playbooks specifically for women. We've obviously got junior programs, veterans programs. We've got PGA members and chapters and sections that are doing unbelievable work in inner cities or with youth and diverse groups of color. We have sections that are doing great work within school programs. We've got some that are doing great work with programs, YMCAs around the country. So we've got a myriad and a multitude of different programs around the country. We have decided over the last few years to try to, from a national perspective, to promote a few different ones, but by no means are we only targeting those. And when I say that, obviously drive, chip, and putt, PGA Junior League on kind of a junior space. When we look at our veterans programs, obviously we're partnered with Folds of Honor, but also our PGA Hope program, which is specific to the PGA on the veteran side. And in our player development from an adult standpoint, we still have Get Golf Ready and other programs, but there's chapters and sections that are doing other programs in the spaces that are very, very successful at it. We want them to continue to do it, but our resources have been concentrated on a few to promote, but we want to try to help support to bring in as many people from as many different backgrounds as we can into the game, because the more people we have that get introduced to it, the more people we have an opportunity to keep in the game, the more people we can create as golfers and customers. That's going to help the business moving forward.
The PGA, certainly on television and in print, seems very national. What can the PGA do to become more local and to attract more local golfers?
Yeah, we've heard that, and hopefully we're doing a better job at that, John. We're trying to work with more closely with the ED committee and the executive directors around the country. Some of that's providing certain resources so that they can use locally. One example of that, trying to promote people to get into PGM university programs to help create more associates and more young assistants. We did a couple of PSA spots, but then we worked with all the programs around the country, the 18 colleges and universities, to create more of a local spot that they utilize in their state and hopefully locally partner with the sections. But it's really trying to work with, just open up and better communication with the 41 sections. What PSAs or what are we doing on a national level that they can utilize locally? If we have somebody that's in one of those PSAs that's from that section, obviously utilizing it locally. There's been others that obviously it's just pushing out a lot of the information. So we're trying to develop a way that it's easy and simple for sections to be able to move that information out. I don't want to create more work for executive directors and staffs around the country. Some are fortunate that they have larger staffs, like in California, but they do so much for the members. But we've got other sections just because the resources are much smaller. So whatever we're trying to create from a communication standpoint or from a support standpoint, we want to try to make it so that it's easy to utilize and easy to push out that information. So again, we just have to make sure we're listening to members in sections around the country and continue to try to provide that in its easiest format to help support them and easy information out on a local level.
Regarding education for the PGA member, how involved were you in the rollout of 3.0?
Well, a lot of us were very involved. When I ran for national office in 2016, I talked about that I didn't think our education system was resonating with those that were hiring for general manager, director of golf, and head professional positions around the country. And what I meant by that is we had members that were doing a lot of work and were really passionate and spent all the time and effort to either get certified or become master professional status, but it necessarily wasn't always resonating with what that meant and what those members went through to get those designations and accreditations for those that were hiring positions. We saw examples on others, let's say the GCSA, for example, that if you were a certified superintendent, they did a pretty good job in what that meant, resonated for those that were hiring to look to hire a superintendent and deviating between a superintendent and a certified superintendent. And CMA did the same, certified as club manager. And we needed to reevaluate and relook at our education system, not only what we were offering, but then how were we communicating that to the employers around the country on what those designations meant. So that was one step of it. The second step is we had been hearing for years from members that were really specializing in one area of the business. And why did I need to go through education that was more about the overall business of operations if I knew, because maybe I was already working as a full-time director of instruction or a full-time teacher and coach for 4, 5, 6 years. Why did I need to complete my education to get my PGA status on these areas that really didn't pertain to what was job? We also had individuals that said, hey, I need more education. I want to take that next step to become a GM. I need more education and training on that area. So we heard that for several years and we listened, and then we went back to the education committee and our national staff on education and asked them to reevaluate and relook at it. So I was in agreement and a believer that we need to create 3 different career paths, and we need to continue to modify and look at that. And I don't know if that's the right answer, John, in 5, 10 years from now. We may have 4 career paths that were then under education. But we are developing the 3.0 and the 3 career paths. We're going to be concentrating on that for the next several years. We're also working with some of the university programs in some specialization. For instance, UNLV has developed a great program through their university PGM program, as well as their hospitality program there at the university, to create kind of a certification on the executive level. And we're talking to a couple other universities about the same thing, could be teaching, coaching, or for operations. So I believe in a 3 career paths. I think it gives our members and our associates an opportunity to really concentrate on one area of interest, if that's what they like, but it also gives an opportunity for somebody to go through operations, much like most of us did, and like I did. When I went through the program, as an example, I would not have probably been able to pick any other career path other than operations, because at that time, I did not know that I was going to go into an executive. And quite frankly, when I started in the business, I wanted to teach full time. I wanted to still try to play in a lot of section events and tournaments. And that evolved over a few years into more operations. And that I was then dead set on becoming a head golf professional and then director of golf. And I wanted to definitely just concentrate on being golf operations. But then after several years, that evolved into I wanted to take the step as general manager and got into more executive management. So I would have been an individual that would have gone through the operations side of it in the 3 career paths, but later would have then changed over and gotten certified in other areas and then continue to grow in different areas of the business. So I think there's opportunities no matter what somebody's interested in. We still believe that the majority of our as members will go into operations, but we do now have an opportunity for those we've heard from for years to provide specialized education and training in a couple of distinct career paths on the executive side, as well as teaching and coaching. And we think that's a great way to go. We took that feedback from members around the country and we reacted to it. So we think it's going to be a good way moving forward. And we just have to make sure that we continue to listen and modify where needed. So we're filling the needs of members around the country.
I'm a New Mexico State PGM grad myself. How are the PGM programs at the universities doing? And in terms of embracing 3.0, how has that transition been?
Well, I think they're from a factual standpoint and transparency, the numbers of those that were enrolling in those programs decreased over the last 5-7 years. And we heard that from all the PGM directors around the country. I would say that we're now trying to do more than we ever have, partnering with those universities and how we can assist, whether that's through communications, through promotions, through recruitment, and trying to get more people to know about those programs. We have seen this past year that several of the universities' enrollments are up, some of the highest they've had in the last 4 or 5 years. So that's a positive note. Not every single university program, but several have seen a spike. Part of that's just the increase and renewed golf interest over the last 18 months because of the pandemic. But hopefully part of that is some of the communication tools and some of the resources that we've been partnering with those programs on. But we have to do better and we have to do more, and we know that. So we're continuing to work with the universities and the program directors to offer even more and have more support. Specifically to 3.0, we were working on a path for some new education a couple of years ago, and I don't believe we included the program directors enough in that. So when we got into 3.0, we kind of put the brakes on. We took a step back. We created a committee of several PGM university directors, as well as full of graduates from those programs that are still in the golf industry. And those PGA members, along with program directors, have really delivered a lot of great information and work directly now with our education committee and our education staff moving forward to incorporate 3.0 into the universities. But not only to incorporate it, to do it in a way that actually is going to benefit the university, not be confusing for the students. Right now, as it sits today, John, every program will be providing 3 different types of programs, because those that might be seniors and basically 1.0. A sophomore would be on 2.0, and an incoming freshman would be on 3.0. So that's a lot for the universities to have to try to deliver. So we didn't want to create that type of situation that would be a burden. So that's why we pumped the brakes, took a step back, and made sure we invited them to the table to be part of the process. Hopefully that's solved a lot of the issues that we were starting to see, and we were starting to hear from those program directors. And hopefully with their help and their assistance, we're able to roll it out in a way that's going to be beneficial to them, to the universities, and to the students that are getting into it. We're hoping that 3.0 is well received from all the work that's been done from the program director standpoint, from the university standpoint, and our education standpoint, that that'll be the system moving forward. And hopefully it's something that with just small modifications and tweaks is something that they can utilize for a number of years. And I think that will better refine and it will better help the universities in being able to deliver that education. Then we have to continue this communication with the program directors and the universities on how we can lend more support and maybe some more resources from a standpoint of recruitment and getting the information out to young men and women that are interested in the game and interested in the profession, looking at those universities as an opportunity for them to go to get their degree in an area to go into for their careers.
Now, in terms of the PGM programs at the universities, is there talk of expanding them? Because originally, as you know, there were only 4 for 15 years, and then all of a sudden there were 20, and then of course some programs didn't make it, and it downsized again. Is there talk of adding more? And if so, is Southern California a part of that discussion?
We haven't had any recent discussions about expanding. I think mostly because of the pandemic. Unfortunately, we actually had 1 or 2 programs that are going to be going away. Now, they had some pretty small enrollment numbers over the years. Quite frankly, they weren't living up to some of the guidelines of things that they were supposed to be delivering to make sure that they lived up to our education level and the brand of the PGA of America. And a couple of those decided just because of budgetary reasons when in this pandemic kind of world and education and universities that were struggling in a certain respect from a financial standpoint, there was 1 or 2 universities that decided they were going to do away with the program. So those students don't have to just disappear. Obviously, they have to be phased out. They have to be offered that education until they graduate or decide to get out of the program. But a couple of schools won't be moving forward in the years to come. So we're going to be down to 16 here in a couple of years. But that being said, people would say most of our have been from interest around the country. So we got into conversations with universities and programs, or universities and colleges along with sections came to the PGA of America saying we'd be interested in talking. So we've had a couple of new schools over the last few years that have entered into conversations, but I wouldn't say anything of a real serious nature. So right now, it's not a hot topic or not on the agenda to expand, but it's something that we always try to keep an eye on based on the interest level, based on where our numbers are at, based on how we best can offer those services around the country. I do think if we do expand or look at other universities, we need to be very strategic about where they're at. We do have several that are in certain geographical areas. We have other geographical areas of the country that aren't very well representative with PGM University programs. So I would want to make sure that we're very strategic in whatever we do. If we were to expand, it was in an area that we currently don't have a whole lot of representation and offers from PGM universities in that part of the country. And we think it's going to be a program for reasons that can sustain itself and that's really going to be able to support that program and produce good numbers of students every year, which also will provide great internships and the ability of men and women coming out of those programs to be assistants coming out with great knowledge levels in that area of the country.
Now, Jim, I know we're running out of time here. One final question. Can't help but notice that you attribute a lot of your success to mentorship and the mentors that you've had and how that coincided with your education and your growth. Here in the Southern California section, we have placed those 2 things at the top of the list in terms of providing educational opportunities for our associates to connect with mentors to help them grow and graduate through the program and progress. We feel that mentorship is so important to that we actually created a mentorship committee at the section level, which hasn't been there before, in addition to online educational portals for associates to take so that the work experience activities are not so on your own. And at the same time, trying to educate the managers and the director of golf and the head pros that these associates work for on what 3.0 is all about so that they can better be a mentor and a support person for those associates. Many, many, many sections don't do anything like that at all. I realize we're the 3rd largest section in the country, and we have a tremendous amount of resources and probably the best executive director in the entire country. Yeah. Is National going to do something like that?
Well, what we've incorporated as part of 3.0 and those levels as you move up to be certified and then become a master professional is incorporate mentorship as part of those. So we're incorporating it in education. We're also talking with the university programs about how to incorporate that in 3.0 from the university standpoint. So from that level, we are. From a section level, we don't feel we should mandate it. I'm not a big one on mandating much to sections because I think they know what's best at the local level and what services to provide. But when they ask for it or ask for ways that we can assist or help, then absolutely. Although recommending it, absolutely. I mean, we try to recommend to sections that aren't doing things like that to look at successful sections like Southern Cal should consider it, including some section, and reach out to their counterpart, Tom Addis, reach out to their counterpart and talk directly. What we've seen is a lot of times if it's there's always this thought process when we fight, national trying to, put something on us or shove something down from above. So I don't want to be viewed as somebody that's saying you have to do this, because I think we get a lot of pushback in that regard. But to recommend it, hey, it's been really successful in these other areas, recommend that you reach out to Tom Addis, or you reach out to another ED, or you reach out to this section, find out from others and talk to them on how they integrate it. Normally we see that, I think, as PGA members, right? The best advice and the best mentorship comes directly one-on-one from your counterpart. Somebody you work with, somebody that you've worked with, somebody that you know, somebody that you're participating in on the board level or chapter level, or you play in a lot of tournaments with. When that individual is sharing that advice and telling you how well it's worked for them, typically that is received much better than if someone that you're not as familiar with working with on a day-to-day basis is giving you that same type of advice. So we're trying to recommend it from a standpoint of best practices and learn from those around the country. But at the national level, we are incorporating a 3.0 system with the hopes that more and more people that go through that and have mentorship as part of their education, that starts to feed out at the local level and they take it back to where they're working, and it starts to spread around the country.
Fantastic. Jim, thank you so much for your time this morning. On behalf of the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA, we thank you very much for coming on the Catalyst webinar series and allowing us to candidly interview you. We appreciate it. TA, any parting words or just a bye for Mr. Richerson before we tune out?
Jim, thanks. Your time is so valuable, and we really appreciate you visiting with us. Look forward to seeing you in an hour.
Well, John, I just thank you both for having me on and having the opportunity to spend some time virtually with the members of the Southern California section. Tom, thanks for your words. But as I've said before, I just try to follow in the footsteps of those that have led by example. So you and other national presidents have set a great example to try to follow, and just trying to accomplish that. So thank you for all you've done for me personally, and for all you continue to do for Southern Cal. So thank you both for having me on today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. You set the record straight. Andy Tooney was under the impression that your career skyrocketed after appearing on the TV championship matches when you were at Chardonnay.
Well, I failed to mention Andy and his mentorship. So, Andy, if you're still listening, you haven't tuned me out. Thank you for tuning in and listening to my babble, and I appreciate it, my friend. And I owe much of my success to Andy and his mentorship over the years. So, thanks, Andy.
Yeah, we all do.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for supporting the Catalyst webinar series. Stay safe, stay sane. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, TA.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, Jim.